It started with an innocent question from Prince George at a royal luncheon. Why is Aunt Laura wearing Grandma Diana's earrings? What followed rocked the monarchy to its core. The missing heirlooms, the forbidden vault access, and a betrayal buried in royal silk unraveled in real time. Queen Camilla had crossed a line no one thought possible, stealing from Diana's legacy, from Charlotte's future, and from the very crown she swore to uphold. And it wasn't a king or a council who caught her. It was a child, George, who saw what no one else dared to see. The missing jewels that sparked a royal alarm. On June 18, 2025, Catherine, the Princess of Wales, entered the heirloom wing of Kensington Palace for what should have been a routine audit. But within minutes, something felt off. Two of Princess Diana's most sacred treasures, the 1981 Spencer pearl choker and the 1986 Qatar pearl earrings, were missing from the vault. These weren't just jewelry. They were sealed under fingerprint-coded locks, catalogued in 2019, and specifically reserved for Princess Charlotte's 18th birthday in 2043 under Queen Elizabeth II's private instruction. No official sign-out. No surveillance breach. No staff records of withdrawal. The items had simply vanished, without a trace, without a beep from the digital system. Catherine immediately alerted Prince William, who invoked the 2022 Royal Audit Protocol within the hour. Kensington staff were placed under confidentiality orders. Every vault across Windsor, Norfolk, and Sandringham was locked down, and access logs dating back to April 1st were pulled for forensic review. William wasn't treating this as a clerical error. He saw it for what it was, an internal breach. Someone inside the crown had stolen from Diana's memory. He told his team, "This isn't just about security, this is about legacy, Charlotte's legacy." As internal panic spread behind the palace walls, the world outside remained unaware, for now. But within Kensington, suspicion was no longer quiet. William and Catherine suspected someone close, someone with motive, access, and the gall to touch what was sacred. And when the logs returned from April, the pattern began to take shape. And all fingers pointed toward someone who had no blood right to those heirlooms. A silent heist with no fingerprints. The pearl choker had last been reviewed by the Crown's gemologist in March 2023. The Qatar earrings were scheduled for routine cleaning in May 2025, just weeks before the theft. Vault entries required dual authentication, including fingerprints and time-stamped logs. But on this occasion, there were none. No forced entry, no digital signature, just absence. What triggered alarms for Catherine was a quiet visit Camilla made to the Kensington wing on April 9, 2025. She had requested heritage access for a potential museum project, but no such project was recorded. No staff accompanied her, and no one signed off. It had seemed harmless at the time, until now. By June 20th, after reviewing every second of footage and every key log, William's staff concluded that Camilla had been the only unchaperoned visitor to the secured area in the prior 90 days. The theft had been carried out by someone who knew the system well. Someone who could disable alarms with a voice code, override locks, and walk out with pieces of a future queen's inheritance. This wasn't an act of ignorance. It was deliberate, calculated, and deeply personal. For Catherine, it felt like a second betrayal, not just of Diana's legacy, but of Charlotte's future. And for William, it was about more than jewels. It was about bloodlines. As the pieces began falling into place, all that remained was undeniable proof, something tangible. William and Catherine needed more than suspicion. They needed a smoking gun. And they got it just 2 days later, at a royal luncheon hosted at Buckingham Palace. A single question from a child would detonate the truth in the most public and humiliating way imaginable. Prince George's innocent question that changed everything. On June 20th, 2025, at a Buckingham Palace event commemorating the 40th anniversary of Diana's 1985 landmine campaign, Prince George, now 12, innocently asked, "Mummy, why is Aunt Laura wearing Grandma Diana's earrings?" The words stopped Catherine cold. Across the room, Laura Lopes, daughter of Camilla, was chatting beside a table draped in white roses. And there they were. The unmistakable three-tiered pearl drops from the 1986 Qatar state visit. The same ones missing from the Kensington vault. Catherine approached calmly, her voice steady despite the storm rising in her chest. "Laura, what earrings are those?" Laura blinked, caught off guard. "Oh, these? A gift from Mother," she replied. Catherine said nothing. Within 10 minutes, William was summoned, and the palace gemologist was called in to examine the earrings in a side room. They were verified, identical serial engraving, same microscopic flaw on the lower pearl, confirmed with 1986 archive photos. The discovery left the room in eerie silence. Guests exchanged glances. Camilla, seated beside a senior courtier, turned pale, visibly trembling. What had once been a private investigation was now a public scandal, witnessed by over 30 royals, dignitaries, and staff. The earrings weren't auction replicas. They weren't duplicates. They were Diana's originals, stolen, gifted, and worn by someone outside the bloodline. Laura may have worn them, but it was Camilla who placed them there. The crown had its thief. There was no going back. What had been whispers behind curtains was now exposed in chandeliers and daylight. And as the Wales family retreated into private chambers that evening, it became clear. This would not be handled quietly. Not this time. Not when Diana's legacy had been exploited. The next move was William's, and he had already decided that silence was betrayal. Caught red-handed, the confrontation at Buckingham was swift, cold, and unforgettable. After gemologists confirmed the earrings worn by Laura Lopes were indeed Princess Diana's 1986 Qatar pearls, Catherine stood tall beside her eldest son and looked directly at Camilla. "Those belong to Charlotte," she said, her voice low but unmistakably firm. The room, filled with over 30 guests, was frozen in uncomfortable silence. Camilla's complexion turned ashen. Her fingers twitched around her napkin as her gaze dropped to the floor. There was no explanation, no defense. Laura stumbled through an excuse, claiming her mother had gifted the earrings from a private auction years ago. But when William demanded proof, receipts, certificates, provenance, none existed. The story began to fall apart immediately. The palace archivist confirmed that no royal jewelry had been legally decommissioned since Queen Elizabeth II's 2021 will update, which designated Diana's heirlooms exclusively to the Wales bloodline. The moment wasn't just incriminating, it was humiliating. But the most damning piece came next. Vault entry records, previously flagged by William's audit team, showed that on April 9, 2025, Camilla had entered the heirloom wing of Kensington Palace alone. No curators, no approval, no documentation. It was the exact day the 1981 choker and the Qatar earrings disappeared. Staff originally believed she had gone in to view ceremonial tapestries, but no tapestries were ever moved. What she did carry out that day, security now suspected, was a locked velvet case. Inside Kensington's private chambers that evening, William met with his legal team and senior advisors. The question wasn't if this was theft, it was how to handle it. One advisor suggested a quiet return of the items. William cut him off. "This doesn't disappear behind drapes. This is about my mother, about Charlotte, about the line." Catherine nodded beside him. Camilla had made it personal, and they would respond publicly. The royal family had faced betrayal before, but this time it was from within their walls. Camilla had crossed a line no one else had dared, touching Diana's legacy, handing it to someone outside the royal bloodline, and lying when caught. For William and Catherine, silence would be complicity. As the press began picking up whispers from within the palace, they prepared for the inevitable storm. But what they didn't expect was how quickly the public would rally, not behind the throne, but behind Diana's name. The press finds out. On the morning of June 23, 2025, The Times broke the story with a headline that stunned the nation. Queen's family linked to missing Diana jewels. The article included confirmed quotes from royal insiders, revealing that Princess Diana's 1981 Spencer pearl choker and 1986 earrings had gone missing, and were later spotted on Camilla's daughter at a private palace luncheon. Within hours, the news spread across the Commonwealth, from Sydney to Toronto, from Cape Town to Edinburgh. Social media went into meltdown. Hashtags like #JusticeForDiana, #ProtectCharlotte, and #CamillaGate trended worldwide. TikTok was flooded with comparison videos showing Diana wearing the original jewelry beside footage of Laura Lopes at the luncheon. One viral post, viewed 2.8 million times in 12 hours, stated, "She didn't just steal jewels. She stole from a child, Diana's child's child." Comments poured in demanding Camilla be removed from her title and exiled from public duties. It was a cultural tidal wave. British tabloids, typically cautious with royal stories, grew bolder by the hour. The Mirror called it a heirloom heist. The Daily Mail published a 3-page spread titled, "From Diana to Charlotte, Interrupted." BBC Newsnight ran a feature questioning how the palace could maintain moral authority when one of its own had betrayed its past. Even international outlets like Le Monde, The New York Times, and Der Spiegel reported on the scandal, highlighting the symbolic depth of Diana's legacy being compromised. Inside the palace, the pressure was no longer internal. Public trust, the very currency that sustained the monarchy, was now at risk. William's approval rating soared to 87%, while Camilla's fell to a record low of 21%. Charles remained silent, but insiders said he was devastated, locked in his private quarters at Clarence House, refusing to take meetings. The world wasn't waiting for a royal statement. They were waiting for justice. And William had no intention of letting the moment pass quietly. With the public demanding answers and the press closing in on every unsealed door, William realized this scandal couldn't be managed. It had to be resolved. In Diana's name. For Charlotte. For the people. The time for damage control was over. The time for decisive action had come. And on June 24th, behind closed gates at Kensington, William would make a decision that would change the face of the modern monarchy forever and bring Camilla's royal power crashing down in silence. Camilla is officially thrown out of the palace. The decision came swiftly on June 24, 2025. There were no formal announcements, no press conference. But behind the regal doors of Kensington Palace, Prince William signed a classified directive stripping Camilla Parker Bowles of her access to all royal heirloom vaults, ceremonial wardrobes, and internal planning councils. By 11 o'clock a.m., her security clearance had been downgraded. She would no longer be briefed, invited, or copied into correspondence tied to the Wales family or the late Princess Diana's legacy. That same afternoon, Camilla attempted to enter the heritage wing for an unrelated engagement. Her palace badge failed. Doors wouldn't open. Staff averted their eyes. Her keycard was deactivated, her escort detail reassigned, and her personal aide informed, under direct order from William, that she would no longer be attending public-facing events related to Queen Elizabeth II. Or Diana. Her Clarence House team was advised not to mention heirlooms, archives, or Yale's family schedules again. The wall had gone up. Camilla was not physically removed, but emotionally and institutionally, she had been exiled. William was deliberate. "This is not punishment," he reportedly told a royal aide. "It's preservation." There would be no apology demanded, no official press release, no finger-pointing. Instead, the message was clear in action. Diana's memory had guardians, and betrayal, whether through theft or entitlement, would never stand under the House of Windsor's banner. One royal legal advisor called it the most complete internal exclusion since Wallace Simpson. By evening, Camilla had relocated quietly to Ray Mill House, her private property in Wiltshire, just over 90 minutes from London. She wasn't placed under arrest, but she was surrounded by silence. Her phones rang less. Her emails returned automated messages. She was, in palace terms, frozen, and the world outside those palace gates knew something had changed. The Queen Consort still had the title, but in every meaningful sense, she no longer had a role. Camilla's quiet exit marked a dramatic reversal. Just 2 years earlier, she stood beside King Charles during his May 2023 coronation, wearing Queen Mary's crown. Now, in the span of 72 hours, she was out, her access revoked, her influence shattered. But it wasn't just about heirlooms or even legacy anymore. The deeper wound was moral. It was about breaking a sacred trust. And as William and Catherine worked to lock down Diana's memory, a more painful truth began to surface. This wasn't Camilla's first transgression. The deeper betrayal, Diana's legacy, undone. The pearl choker and Qatar earrings were not random objects of vanity. They were iconic touchstones of Princess Diana's transformation. The 1981 Spencer choker, gifted after her royal wedding, had adorned Diana during her first official visit to Australia in 1983. The Qatar earrings, presented during a diplomatic tour of the Middle East in 1986, had symbolized grace under pressure. Proof that Diana was more than just a royal bride. She was a global figure. Both pieces were irreplaceable and intended only for Princess Charlotte in 2043. This wasn't just about jewels. It was about identity, about memory, and about lineage. In 2021, just months before her death, Queen Elizabeth II had signed a private memorandum stating that all personal jewelry of the late Princess of Wales shall pass directly, through the Wales line only. That legal wording was echoed in the 2022 Royal Charter revision, an internal document that William and Catherine had personally overseen. There was no ambiguity. Camilla had no authority to access, move, or distribute Diana's legacy. The act of giving those heirlooms meant for Charlotte to Laura Lopes, her non-working, non-royal daughter, crossed a constitutional and emotional boundary. It wasn't just a misstep. It was viewed as an attempt to rewrite the royal bloodline's future by passing Diana's symbolism into Camilla's own branch. One royal historian called it a second erasure of Diana. For William, it was unforgivable. For Catherine, it was deeply personal. This wasn't about possession, an insider revealed. It was about protection. Even among palace insiders who had once backed Camilla, sentiment shifted. "She touched what was sacred," said one former senior equerry. "She opened a vault she should never have entered." Public sentiment followed. Diana's fans, many of whom had remained quiet for decades, reawakened. Online forums, royal fan clubs, and newspaper columns lit up. For many, this wasn't about royalty. It was about betrayal, about the theft of something that belonged to a mother, her son, and eventually his daughter. As the emotional weight of what Camilla had done settled into public consciousness, a new storm began to build, not in newspapers or on social media, but within the palace itself. Whispers became testimonies. Staffers stepped forward. Old files were reopened. And what they uncovered painted a darker picture. This wasn't the first time Camilla had overstepped. In fact, a pattern emerged, one stretching back over a decade, pointing to a quiet entitlement that no one had dared challenge. Until now. Camilla's past resurfaces, and it's ugly. With Camilla officially sidelined and public trust shattered, royal investigators began combing through past records. And what they found was disturbing. Security logs showed Camilla had accessed Windsor vaults without escort in 2017, 2019, and once more in 2021, always during times when Charles was abroad. Each visit had been registered as legacy inspection, but there were no corresponding reports, no curator notes, and no inventory adjustments. They were silent visits, hidden in plain sight. Former staff members who had served under Queen Elizabeth II came forward with quiet stories. Camilla entering storage areas without authorization, items temporarily going missing, and her frequent requests to review Diana's collection. One curator recalled being dismissed for refusing to leave Camilla alone in the heirloom chamber in 2019. She said, "You can go, I just want to look," the curator said. But when I returned, one of the sapphire rings was gone for 3 weeks. As the media picked up these new threads, Camilla's image crumbled completely. Once touted as the modern face of royal resilience, she was now portrayed as a manipulator cloaked in protocol. Headlines from The Guardian and The Telegraph no longer pulled punches. One piece read, "The Consort's Quiet Crown, How Camilla Crossed Every Line." Her approval rating dropped below 26%, while Catherine's rose to a historic 84%, surpassing even Queen Elizabeth II's numbers from 2012's Diamond Jubilee. But perhaps the most brutal cut came not from press or palace, but from the people. Outside Kensington Palace, hundreds of handwritten letters began arriving, many from women who had once admired Camilla's strength. Now they asked for her resignation. One note, written by a mother from Birmingham, simply read, "You didn't just steal jewels, you stole a grandmother's promise to her granddaughter." Catherine locks down Diana's legacy. On July 1st, 2025, just 13 days after the first heirlooms went missing, Princess Catherine entered the private wing of Kensington Palace with a single purpose: to reclaim what Camilla tried to rewrite. Inside the high-security archive room, a team of 2 curators, 1 security officer, and an archivist stood silently as Catherine placed a velvet-wrapped bundle into a new biometric vault. The bundle contained Diana's sapphire ring, her 1981 wedding bracelet, and remaining pearl sets, now secured under Catherine's authority. Biometric access was assigned only to Catherine herself and Charlotte's future steward, a royal-appointed guardian who will assume heirloom protection duties when Charlotte turns 18 in 2043. William, by deliberate design, was excluded from access, not as a slight, but to ensure moral neutrality. "This isn't about hierarchy," Catherine reportedly said. "It's about heritage." A small note, handwritten on royal stationery, was slipped into the vault. "For Charlotte, love, Mommy." That note would become a symbol of the crown's reset. Royal staff present described the event as deeply reverent, with the kind of solemnity typically reserved for royal funerals. One insider told The Times, "It was the most silent room I've ever been in, like the moment history rewrites itself." Catherine refused to allow press photography or formal documentation. For her, this was not a performance, it was protection. And in that choice, the world saw Diana's influence not just remembered, but institutionalized in the hands of her son's wife. Across Britain, support for Catherine reached unprecedented levels. A YouGov poll conducted on July 2nd revealed her approval rating hit 84%, eclipsing even Queen Elizabeth II during the 2012 Diamond Jubilee. Royalists, moderates, and even Republican critics united in admiration. Editorials called her Diana's true successor, not by title, but by conduct. Social media overflowed with support, with hashtags like #Catherine the Protector and #ForCharlotte trending worldwide. And Clarence House? Requests for reassignment poured in. Camilla was no longer a queen. She was a liability. With Catherine now guarding Diana's memory and public trust firmly on her side, there remained only one step: redrawing the lines of power. For William, this wasn't just about one theft. It was about systemic failure, about his father's silence, about legacy being stolen under the guise of family ties. The heir to the throne had made his stance clear in private. Now, it was time to make it official. July 4th would no longer just be an American holiday. It would become the day the crown drew its line in stone. William draws a line the crown can't ignore. On July 4th, 2025, Prince William, in his private study at Kensington, signed a sweeping royal directive with finality. The order was titled Preservation of Bloodline Heirlooms Act, Royal Code 248/2025. Its primary clause, only direct descendants of Princess Diana and their legal stewards may access or inherit her heirlooms. That meant Camilla, Laura Lopes, and any non-Wales family member, past or present, were now legally and symbolically barred from all Diana-related assets. The monarchy's wall had been raised, and this time it was impenetrable. Immediately after signing, William requested a private meeting with King Charles, held behind closed doors at Clarence House. Sources present said the conversation was short, but historic. William reportedly told his father, "If you can't protect Mum's legacy, I will." Charles, appearing weary and silent, offered no resistance. Whether due to guilt, exhaustion, or political calculation, the king did not challenge the directive. In one quiet hour, William seized control, not just of heirlooms, but of the monarchy's moral compass. Simultaneously, a new internal department was established within the Royal Historical Preservation Office, tasked solely with cataloging every item Diana ever wore, from fabric swatches of her 1983 Australia tour to loose stones from the 1987 Vienna Gala tiara. Each piece would be digitally recorded, sealed, and eventually passed to Charlotte through a generational stewardship program. Catherine, though not involved in political maneuvering, quietly approved the budget herself. For the first time in royal history, legacy would follow law, not favoritism. Public reaction confirmed what the crown already knew. This wasn't just a family correction, it was a restoration. Support letters flooded in from across the UK, Canada, Australia, and even New Zealand. many addressed to Princess Charlotte directly. "You are your grandmother's echo," one note read. "May you never forget how hard they fought to protect you." Camilla's name was scrubbed from Royal UK's heirloom section within days. Her final exile wasn't just from Kensington, it was from history itself. The monarchy has faced many storms, but none quite like this. Queen Camilla's downfall wasn't due to war, politics, or scandalous tabloids. It came from within, sparked by a simple observation from Prince George, and ignited by the protective instincts of Prince William and Princess Catherine. The theft of Diana's heirlooms wasn't just about jewelry. It was about legacy, bloodlines, and a sacred promise made by Queen Elizabeth II. Camilla, once seen as the woman who fought her way into the royal fold, is now the figure who quietly tried to rewrite royal history and lost everything in the process. Stripped of access, exiled in all but title, and erased from future planning, she is a royal in name only. Meanwhile, Princess Charlotte's inheritance is safe. Her future is guarded not just by protocol, but by the unwavering strength of her parents, and the voice of a child who spoke truth at the right moment. This wasn't just a scandal. It was a reckoning, a reminder that in the house of Windsor, loyalty matters, and that Diana's legacy, long silenced, is now speaking louder than ever through the next generation. The crown remembers, and the people do too.